Let's dig into what the Trump verdict could mean for the election, for the markets. Brian Gardner is standing by. He's chief Washington policy strategist at Stifel. And Larry Sabatao is director of the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia. Welcome to both of you. Any kind of knee-jerk reaction here, Brian? What's on your mind as we ponder how this will all unfold in the coming months?
Yeah, the knee-jerk reaction is there's not much of a reaction, right? Obviously, anytime you see a headline of a major figure being convicted of anything, it gets your attention. But the flow through of what it means for the election and then the markets by extension, I don't think this is a needle mover. It doesn't fundamentally change the direction of the election. That being said, it's going to be a close election, so small shifts matter. But I don't think yesterday's verdict is a game changer in any way, shape, or form.
Larry, a lot of people are watching the independents in that poll where it was 17% said it might move the needle for them. Most said it would not. Elections are close, though, and so I think they're paying close attention to things that could make the difference.
Yes, the pre-verdict polls mean absolutely nothing. Of course, most polls mean absolutely nothing. They're ephemeral. But the polls that you're citing, and I've seen others similar to that, suggest that there is going to be a slight negative effect for Trump. I think that's true. The question is, how long does it last? This is the end of May, and the election is from the end of September to the first week in November. So we have a long time to go. 2 debates, both conventions, and lots of other things that aren't even on the calendar. So I agree with that. And in a way, it's kind of shocking in that in an earlier era, and I'm old enough to know, what was happening, what would have been happening today is the Republican Party would be scrambling for a new nominee. And instead, the Republicans are rallying around Trump, and he's able to raise $35 million in a day, less than a day. So things have changed, not necessarily for the better, but they've changed.
Brian, the big news prior to this was that maybe Elon Musk would end up playing some kind of advisory role in a Trump administration. I mean, what do you think we watch out for in terms of moving the needle? Is it the figures who might be close to him, the indictment itself, the circus around whether there's jail time and how that plays out later this year? Or I guess my question is it ultimately policy that you think voters want to hear more about and which figures might be influencing that? Or is it more on a personal level, what happens to Donald Trump himself as these trials and indictments and sentencings continue?
Ultimately, I think it comes down for voters what it means for them, what policies mean for them. And I think the election is shaping up so far. It can change, per Larry's point. It can change. But right now, it appears to be a referendum on the incumbent, on President Biden. And that's a negative for Biden. So voters are looking at the economy. They're looking at the border. They're looking at the things that matter in their daily lives. This is a sideshow for them. There's nothing that came out yesterday that changes their mind about Donald Trump. They've known about his character going back to 2015 and earlier. He was never elected, or people didn't vote for him because he's a choir boy. Voters have always dismissed that. So ultimately, it comes down to who's the person in the White House that's going to make life better for folks. And right now, that's not a good position for the Biden campaign. That's not where they want to be.
Larry, what would you add to that?
Well, I'm going to say again, it's the end of May. And so there will be a lot of other issues thrown into the mix. I would add to the ones just mentioned, abortion and reproductive freedom and democracy, which Biden keeps stressing. And, Trump reinforces that in a lot of ways. I was personally shocked, even knowing the Trump record, to hear a former president of the United States say America is a fascist state. Let that sink in for a moment. I know it's Donald Trump. I know he said lots of controversial things.
That's not even top 50. Yeah. No, I take your
shocking.
No, and I think the debates will probably have a lot of shocking rhetoric like that. Maybe more pragmatically, Brian, what's the significance, if any, of Joe Manchin's kind of officially becoming an independent? Should we take that timing as purely coincidental?
I don't know. The way I look at it, it's a proxy, though. Regardless of what his future career is, I think the message is that you're seeing the continuation of a culturally conservative voter moving away from the Democratic Party and to the Republican Party. Both parties are undergoing these realignments with working class voters, first white working class voters, then Hispanic. You're starting to see black working class voters starting to move Republican. And I think Manchin identifies with that bloc. At the same time, you're seeing white, college-educated, wealthier voters that used to be kind of the country club Republican bloc moving in the Democratic direction. I think Manchin, regardless of what he wants to do future, he's just kind of aligning himself where his base has been moving for the last decade.
Larry, quickly, as we try to figure out who might win the race for the White House, how does the whole constellation appear to be shaping up? That's ultimately what's going to influence policy. That's what the markets care about. You know, what's the divide in Congress? Will it be a split, an administration split, a party split? Just give me the early sense of what we think we might see play out here.
Sure. If you did a survey of political analysts and elites, they would say Biden is in deep trouble and Trump, despite the conviction, is headed for a second term in the White House. And I think, as I frequently do, I disagree with the consensus. I don't think it's going Biden's way necessarily, but this is a very close election. And it's going to be close in enough of the swing states so that if they move a point or two because of anything, it will determine the result. We're not headed for a landslide.